Hey everyone, I am very lucky to have with me a person I've been working with actually for a little while, but have never met in person, which is kind of interesting. So everyone say hello to Declan. Declan joins us from a support group that was created on Facebook to support Australians who have pericarditis and myocarditis, and that's how we met. So I will hand over to Declan just to give us a little bit of a background of who he is and his story. So yeah, welcome, Declan.
Hey, thanks for having me today, Naomi. I'm from Perth, Western Australia. That was diagnosed with pericarditis 6 days after my initial Pfizer vaccine. Leading up to it, I didn't know it was vaccine related. Yeah, I'll take you back. I had my vaccine during the work day as part of a work task, and developed. I had some chest pains the next day. It was more chest tightness, and I thought it might have been related to the gym. And then as it progressed during the week, it got worse. The tightness became pains, and I couldn't lay down properly, and I was leaning forward. And then, on a Saturday afternoon, I did some shopping. I'm just carrying the shopping bags from the car to the lift, so 30 meters or so. By the time I got to my apartment, I was puffing, and I thought something was really wrong, struggling to breathe. And I did delay it a little bit longer, and then eventually I took myself to the hospital the following day. Yeah, they told me I was diagnosed with pericarditis. And I was fit and healthy before all this, so I knew something was wrong. Just carrying shopping from the car, yeah, and then from there, I thought it wasn't too bad. Diagnosed with pericarditis. Okay, well, if this is as bad as it gets, then that's okay. 2 days later, just went downhill. Pretty bad, and it's been 16 months now.
Yeah.
Doing a lot better, but the first 8 months were no good, and then the first 3 months were even worse. 4 months. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the hardest thing for me, and I'm sure you probably got the same advice. Whereas I was told again in hospital, same as you. It'll be mild, take some Nurofen, and you'll be good in 2 to 3 weeks. I was not good in 2 to 3 weeks, and I actually declined like substantially over that period of time, and I ended up developing neurological issues. So I guess for me, it wasn't just pericarditis. I ended up getting everything, so I got the whole shebang. So obviously, from our perspective, you and I met, I think, originally through the main pericarditis group. So I joined that. I'd gone obviously thinking I was going to be okay. And then I went to the cardiologist, and the cardiologist was like, you'll be fine. And I'm like, I am not feeling fine. Like, I was feeling worse and worse. And so I ended up joining the pericarditis, like the main universal pericarditis group. And I think that's where I ended up meeting you. And you started obviously the Australian version of the vaccine related pericarditis group. And sort of talk us through, if you can, I guess, why you were compelled to create that group, and what you thought as you were creating it, whether or not it would be as big as we've actually become.
Well, to immediately answer that second part, no, I never thought it'd grow to as big as it is. Again, like all of us when we first diagnosed, you're almost made to feel like you're only one, or there's only a couple of you around. I never knew anything about pericarditis, and then I was diagnosed. I started looking it up, reading journal articles, and then I found a forum on Facebook, General Pericarditis Forum, and a lot of those people were long-term chronic sufferers, maybe after heart surgery, sometimes a viral illness, and they were long-time 10-year sufferers. And then all of a sudden, it just seemed like it got bombarded, people from all around the world. Hey, I've just had my, Moderna or Pfizer, and I may have, the doctor say I may have had vaccine-related pericarditis, or others are more, I guess, concrete. Yeah, I've been diagnosed with, but there was just so many people. And then all of a sudden, I noticed all the Aussies just slowly hitting the page. And I thought, we've got to hold on here. It's a few weeks in now to my condition. And then about 5-6 weeks in, I was seeing the doctor constantly. It felt, a few times a week after the hospital. And then finally, a medico told me that, well, we don't really know, because at first it was 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And and there was so much uncertainty around this. But I thought we've got to stay in touch. So I created a group. I started reaching out to people individually. I asked the admins of the other page if we could advertise that. We're not an anti-vax group. We're just trying to create a support network. I noticed other groups were taken down, even if I didn't see them post controversial material. So I thought, well, maybe there's an algorithm here. VR pericarditis, myocarditis, vaccine related.
Yeah.
Maybe that has helped us. Maybe it had nothing to do with it, but we've survived.
We absolutely have. And I feel like we have flown under the radar quite well, really. And I think that's a tribute to you in a way, because I know that you go through to make sure that people are not posting anything that could potentially put us at risk, because obviously the group is incredibly important for a lot of people. So we've been very moderate in the views that we allow on the page.
That was, it's been quite difficult initially to moderate, finding that balance. In general, the page moderates itself now, but initially I wasn't sure on what can be said, and it was just really support focused at first. So, create a pack on how to apply for a temporary exemption. Many people had spoken to their doctors and they had no idea about temporary exemptions, and that was one of the first huge hurdles, because even if you're sick, you're still mandated to get another one in many cases. But yeah, moderating was quite interesting. I think, I'll pull back a little bit, because not everything is, conspiratorial, and people are still entitled to their views, and it's so tied up in so many different facets, like there's political, social elements to it, and I think people are still entitled to their views, but we are a support group first and foremost. I personally have stepped back a lot from the group, maybe the last 5-6 months. I do give it a screen, and I still approve applications and chat to people, but there was a lot to take on. I had probably felt like 100 people initially reach out to me personally, and it's like really reliving that same story. The group's done so much for me as well. I don't want to completely say it's a wholly selfless act, but of course I have gotten so much out of it as well, and I'm glad others do too. It is nice hearing some getting some nice private messages from people, but I've really had to step back, because dealing with it initially as a independent person, living on my own, and financial stresses, health stresses, redundancies and things like that. I think one of the things we picked up was that almost re-traumatizing. It was almost re-traumatizing me reading the same things, because so many of our stories are so similar.
Yeah,
but I'm so glad, because the community, maybe the vetting had a lot to do with it, but we're all regular people. We're most from all different backgrounds and professions, just regular people that got affected by this vaccine. So the page does regulate itself. I don't really want to, so I'm not saying it needs heavy moderating, because we're all pretty moderate in general.
I think in the initial stages, I think a lot of people assumed vaccine injured were anti-vax, and I don't really know why that would be the case, considering we were all vaccinated, which is why we were there to start with. It's kind of insane. But I guess that was the picture that was painted. So it's been good in a lot of ways for people to see that we are just all normal people. Like, at the end of the day, we're just regular, everyday people who were unfortunately affected by this vaccine. It can become very overwhelming. I know for me, I can sit there and read people's stories and just cry, because it's just horrendous, some of the stuff that we witness in those support groups. And yeah.
No, agreed. And especially in this climate, there's not a lot of external support for people. There really is very little safety net for people. So yeah, it can be overwhelming in many different aspects of our life. So,
and I think the whole issue itself is overwhelming. We were talking about this whole purpose. Like, if you look at all of the facets of vaccine injury, every single one of them is difficult. We're not acknowledged. And I think that's the first important step in a support group, was we were, at least people were coming in saying, I've got this, what is it? And am I going crazy? And I think that was what really got me at the beginning, was I actually felt like I was the only person in Australia being vaccine injured. And then I found other people, and then you kind of find your family almost. It's like, well, I'm not going crazy, and our constellation of symptoms are so nuts. Like, it's not just cardiac, it's, you know, your body's gone crazy, and you are really hoping to find other people who have got the same issues, so you don't feel like you are actually going nuts.
Yeah, agreed. And one of the big things early on for me as well, like, we couldn't just be sick. We're not even talking about recovery at this moment. We, you know, because we all still have things to worry about. You know, conversations with, you know, doctors and the like. As we all know, that there was elements of censorship. So what some people may say to you in person, when it comes down to writing on paper, is a totally different thing, and it can make you feel crazy. Yeah, it's been a very difficult experience for many of us. But I've met some great health professionals on the way. But even then, I feel many of their hands are tied as well.
And I think that's been probably the most disappointing thing in this, is doctors have not been allowed to be doctors. So they're so constrained by whatever reason that obviously we're presenting with things that are new. This is novel. Obviously we had pericarditis, but I don't feel like our pericarditis was like normal pericarditis, because everything that they tried for me, and I don't know for you, but everything for me, all the normal things that they would try were doing nothing, all making me worse. So they didn't really know how to treat me. And you were just left in this black box of, I'm really sorry that you're injured, but we don't know what to do with you.
Very frustrated at times with that, because that they still have to run the line that you should get another dose or booster or another type of vaccine, but they haven't really looked into what's causing the effect first, But even how they can come up with their assessments of it's mild, that now it might be a bit of a rant, but I went to the vaccine safety clinic and then was discharged shortly after. Yeah, we're happy with the way, your doctor and your GP and your cardiologist are handling things. But the vaccine safety clinic just signed me off. And where's the ongoing monitoring of data for severity and duration? Because they keep saying it's a two-week condition for many people. But as we're seeing on the group, many of us are well in over a year now. And also, to varying degrees, but maybe there are those 2-week cases, but there's still a large proportion of numbers. If we're the rare ones, then there must have been a lot of pericarditis cases, because there's, probably 700 in the group.
Yeah. And I think there's so many parts of this. So like for me, I don't know for you, I self-reported to TGA, and I got a call, I think about 9 days later, from the Queensland Public Health Unit or whatever, and just asking me how I was. And that was it. That's been the extent of the checking that they've done on me in the course of 16 months of injury. Is, oh, okay, you're going to a cardiologist, and that's it, like, end of story. And there's been nothing, and it frustrates the hell out of me. And I don't know anyone personally who's been, I guess, followed up by the TGA at all.
I'm under the assumption that the West Australian vaccine surveillance system, or safety surveillance system, whatever it's called, reports to the TGA. But the fact is, in their name, it's called surveillance. Vaccine safety surveillance, and I haven't seen much of that at all.
It's the absence of proactive, which really surprised me. I was expecting, this is a novel rollout. It's going out to billions of people. I just expected the government would have had where if something went wrong, you would just be throwing people at, injured people to understand what had gone wrong, so that it was a consistent problem. You would stop causing more issues for other people, and that just didn't happen.
I've always been pro science and rational inquiry and evidence based. But the way this was handled, it seemed like we were dismissed very, very early on, and no one really wanted to know about it. I even asked someone at the vaccine safety clinic, are they looking into it, and that they weren't. At the same time, still being told to get another booster, and I've only had one vaccine, and technically, I may need another 2 more according to you, and this is what the first one's already done. I can't imagine what the second one is, and knowing that there's no safety net. I've lost tens of thousands, and lost my job in the end, and my health. knowing that there's no safety net and no cure,
No.
really, no cure. They can throw a bunch of things at it and hope for the best. You can, like, how can I live with myself if I put myself through another one?
Yeah.
And I don't like my chances if the first one has done this to me. And that all that is just to be able to get a job. I met with my cardiologist yesterday, and had the talk about the temporary exemptions, and there's nothing you can do. But sorry, before then I met with a friend who works in HR, and right now I've only got a temporary exemption. And so, every few months I've essentially got to go back and beg for another exemption. At least until I get better. But even then, I don't really want another one.
And nor should you be, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, lowest risk category and of severe COVID, and yet in the highest risk of adverse effects. But nonetheless, I've got a temporary exemption, and private companies now are still asking for vaccine proof, first dose, second dose, and some of them boosters. And while I can give them a temporary exemption, what HR and legal team is going to be accepting someone into their company who's got a temporary exemption, knowing full well that exemption will expire in 2 months. That individual may not be given another exemption, and now you've put the individual and the company between a rock and a hard place, and then that just opens them up as well, because their policies state you must have vaccine. And what if I was employed by them, got another vaccine, and ended up in worse condition? They could essentially dismiss you from your job if you're not vaccinated. But if you got vaccinated and got sick, it's not our problem. Yeah, it's a minefield even just for employment. So while I'm trying to get back on my feet, it just feels like I'm already being discriminated against when I have to upload my temporary exemption and then explain on the phone. And then you don't hear anything back afterwards, and I can see where they're coming from. But it's not right.
No, it's not fair.
I actually, not long ago, I met someone who was a medical researcher. He said, and we were talking about it, and he was talking much higher level that I could comprehend on data and things. But I did mention the support group, and he said, yeah, even that in itself was a safety signal, and that would be of some concern, or at least warrant a further look into.
What has been the most shocking thing, I guess, for you in what you've seen maybe in the group or in your journey itself? Has there been anything in particular that has been a shock?
Geez, I'm sure if you gave me an hour or two to think about it and I had a pen and paper, I could give you a whole lot of things. But off the top of my head, initially with the group, especially with females as well, I noticed that chest issues were a lot of the time dismissed as anxiety. And then you heard people, there was quite a few stories initially, or even people talking to me in private saying, yeah, I had the first dose, and then I went to ED, and they told me I've just got anxiety, and I'm just emotional or anxiety, and some of them even get on anxiety medications for the first time in their life, and then they go get their second shot, and they end up back in there again, and then finally diagnosed with something more conclusive, even though they likely had it the first time. But it takes the second or third dose for it to show up conclusive on any screening. But I think that was quite surprising. I don't think that's just related to the COVID vaccine alone. I think women have been dismissed as with chest pains as anxiety and things like that for a period of time. But that was quite surprising. I mean, almost anything and everything, but yeah, maybe I was fortunate enough in that initial sense that because I was in that bracket, young male. What else is there? I've been disappointed with I thought the vaccine safety clinic when I went there was going to be, doing some real studies, collecting data, evidence surveys, things like that, and it was really disappointing. It's been disappointing that the social climate. Again, we couldn't just be sick. I noticed people's, experiences on the page where they had bad experience with medicos, and And I realized very early on that it was very political. So, and I don't think it was right, but I still had to go in every meeting I went into initially, to wave my hands in the air and say, oh, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, and I know I'm just an unfortunate statistic. Can I please get some help now?
Yeah.
Just try to really disarm them, because as soon as vaccines related, especially when you're talking 18 months ago or whatever it is, it was not the climate you could talk about. I couldn't tell anybody, even in social circles, you almost made to feel embarrassed about it and ashamed of your condition, maybe, at times. But yeah, I remember going into these meetings and literally waving my hands and saying, I'm just an unfortunate statistic. And,
Yeah.
I just wanted to go in there for help.
Yeah, and I think everyone had the same. And it wasn't really until I joined the pericarditis group and I'd seen exactly what you described, where more and more people were coming in. I'm like, holy, this is not just me. And I hadn't said anything to anyone. Like, obviously my close family knew and really close friends, but it upsets me now. But I was really worried about causing vaccine hesitancy at the time. And I still remember I did a Facebook post and I just saying, this is what's happened, but, I'm the only one that I know, and I'm sure everyone else will be fine. And now that's probably my biggest regret over this whole thing, was I didn't know if everyone would be fine. Do you know what I mean? And I've had close friends who have now also developed issues. So I don't know, it was such a different environment back then. I don't think people understand that's the type of journey we had to go on, was we were persecuted everywhere. I guess from your perspective, is there any common threads that you're starting to see?
I do notice that there's other symptoms that come up. I think it's more than just pericarditis, and it's ongoing. It's a lot. There's we have a recovery story page, and I guess not everyone's going to put their story up, but it just seems lingering in people. It comes and goes. It's definitely not a solid trajectory on the way to recovery. It's quite up and down.
Yeah, and I think that's actually been hard for me, because I guess when you normally get sick, it's a linear process. So every day you get slowly better and better. This is not the case. You can be feeling okay for quite a substantial period of time, and then all of a sudden just get smashed by something either different, or you go back. And we're seeing quite a few cases of that now, just in amongst the group, where I know people personally who have been, better or at least recovered quite well for sort of 8 to 9 months or even 11 months, and they're now having a relapse. So that's quite concerning for people, I guess, around them, because obviously we don't know what we're dealing with in the long term. So obviously we all believe that we will get better eventually, but we just don't know. And that's quite heartbreaking to witness.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no comfort. I mean, yeah, the cardiologists say, yeah, you'll be okay. Like they say, oh, well, you're not going to die from this. But you don't know. It's vaccine related. There's so much uncertainty, and that was the whole, because it's gone on longer than these 2 weeks. Yeah, we've got to stay in touch, because no one else is doing anything for us. There's no collation of data. There's no clinic for us. Yeah, and there's only so much choices we have now. It wasn't our choice to get sick, and there's not much help. And I can't bring myself to get no. That's one thing I have control over. So there's very little we have control over when we're sick. But one of the things is, for me personally, is I can't bring myself to get another vaccine, especially with no safety net. I can't. And the other one is work related. I was initially, they offered to give me some help, but I had to admit it was a personal injury, and I can't do that.
No.
Yeah, just for a few dollars and to get some help, I couldn't do that, and because there's only so much I can have. There's so much choice and decision I have, and it's so limited right now, and I can't sell myself out. Even if it means finding a whole new career path now. There's definitely people that have had it a lot worse than I, and we're all still struggling, and I still don't think mine has been mild. I mean, I'm still ongoing. Still don't enjoy the same quality of life. My brain is ready to go. I try to get back into the cardio rehab, and I've had to take some time off because I want to do it, but I'm still not ready. I'm still I flare after the exercise in the evening.
It's quite confronting, and like for me, I was very driven. So like my career was very busy. I climbed mountains, I hiked a lot, I was in the gym every day. So I was super fit. And then to go from that, I couldn't even walk to the end of my driveway. And like I was someone who walked 12 kilometers every day before that. And that is so confronting for people to face. And still today, I can't exercise. Like I'm lucky if I can do a kilometre, and that's at a really slow pace. And that's 16 months later. So there's been so many parts of this that are so confronting for people. And I guess for some people, like, oh, well, you can't exercise, so what? But like it just takes away every part of who you were as a person.
Yeah, I had the same thing. It's you lose your sense of identity. You sound like independent, fit, goal oriented. But you can't do any of those things. And I felt the same. I hadn't climbed Kilimanjaro or whatever you have yet, but I was still swimming. I'm still to this day. I'm probably getting a bit more comfortable with the idea now, but for a long time I was scared to go in the pool by myself. With the uncertainty around everything.
Yeah.
And although the cardiologist says you'll be fine, you just don't know and what you're feeling at the time. And that down on one knee, clutching your chest, and someone saying you'll still be okay, it doesn't necessarily feel like that. So yeah, I've stayed out of the pool. I haven't gone for a run in 16 months. And I had issues, probably struggled with the sense of my identity as well. I was independent, looking after myself. I'd cook, clean. I couldn't even cook for myself. I've always maintained a pretty clean house. I was going to say for a bloke, but maybe just for a person in general. And I'm not OCD by any means, but I couldn't even look after my house or clean. And I think I was used to a semi-clean space, so just even having all that clutter and mess around, it took me a week to do the dishes. Sometimes, you could do a plate a day or something, something ridiculous, and even that wasn't just good for your mental health as well. Yeah, it's been a strange journey. So had plenty of experiences, plenty of strange experiences with medicos, even work doctors, but I'm not trying to block it out, but I am trying to move on. But it has been a difficult situation for all of us. So I think that's the group has been really good, and even for the new ones, people are still getting diagnosed now because they may be getting their booster, maybe considering another shot, or they've just come across us. But I think there's a wealth of knowledge and information in the group, the doctors that may be more experienced in the condition, or things you can try.
Yeah, and I think that was important for me because I think we were talking about this before, is the sense of control. So my cardiologist couldn't do anything to help me. So the drugs they gave me, the colchicine or whatever it is, that didn't work for me. And then I was left with nothing. So to try and take control back for me, it was, I would do all the things. I did all my own research, and I found other people, and the group was really good in that respect because it's at least giving you an outlet of things that have worked for other people. I think that's really important when you're so sick and you've got no doctors are unable to help you or unwilling to help you. At least it gives you an avenue to feel like you're moving forward. Because otherwise you've got no hope. And I think we've had a lot of really good success out of that. Like I know I speak to a few people who are like, I've tried hyperbaric because of what I've read in the group, or I've tried all sorts of different treatments and they're really helping me. And I would never have known about it had I not come into the group. And I think that's really important for people to understand that, we've got 700 people in the group now, and 700 people are trialing different things. So we're literally, I always say this is like we're pioneering our own healthcare in a way, because we're trying so many different options. And I think that's nice in a way. That's been a really good positive outcome, is to see people come together to try and get each other better. And I think that's important. So I think the group you've created has been exceptional for that. And I think the way you've moderated it to keep it a safe space for people has been really, really important as well.
Yeah, thanks, Naomi. And it wouldn't be the group it is without everyone in it, and the help of you. And I will name the other person, Ash, as well. She's been great. They're all normal people as well, that had jobs and families. But yeah, so silver lining through this, I've met some great people over the internet as well. Yeah, it really does show me that we're just normal people. You can draw strength from people that still have hope. Because we all go through up and down periods, and then you see, oh well, someone's having a positive effect from fasting or intermittent fasting, or the steroids have worked well for them, and that gives you another avenue to try as well.
So last question, what are you hoping might change for the injured community in the next year?
I'm hoping that we all get better, and there's very little activity on the page because we've all gotten better and moved on with our life. I hope that page just stays there. Maybe we'll need to be in touch in the future, but I hope it dies its own natural death, and we're all better and able to move on. If that's not the case, though, I just hope that more data and more research and more studies done, and that people in the right positions are open to it, see beyond viewing anything related to it through a political lens, and just take it for what it is. Take the science or the data or evidence for what it is, and rather than them viewing it through a political lens or to other dogmatic view. We can change our minds and change our opinions, I believe, and we should, based on new evidence and data. And there's nothing wrong if anything there is telling others in power or decision makers that maybe something's happening, and it's okay. You can help us, and we will take that help. We want it. We're regular people. We're not all whatever has been portrayed as whatever negative stereotypes. So I just hope we all get the help we need, and I hope we all get better. I mean, I feel like I'm getting better, but every day, and I'm not completely better. I think I've just remained positive. I think sometimes is it just me remaining positive? And you have to.
Yeah, and I think that's important for people. For me, I've been absolutely 100% committed that I will beat this, and that we will get out of this mess, and that everyone will come through. Cool.